Hey, here's a really simple question, but it's deceptively simple. Why does STAMP take so long? We had a couple teachers actually saying, look, I mean, it takes, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. It's taking away from my instructional time. Can't you make that test shorter?
That's a good question. Ideally, whenever you're measuring something, you would like to have as much information as possible to make a conclusion at the end about what you're measuring, right?
Because you're a data geek.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But for example, if you are trying to assess somebody's ability to drive a car,
right.
Ideally, you would like to let them drive for 5 hours in different terrains, in different conditions, snow, rain, because these are things that can happen in the real world.
Right.
But it wouldn't necessarily be practical, right? After some time, for example, after 5 hours, fatigue might come in and start affecting the scores. Mm-hmm. So we know that the more you test, it tends to be better. Yeah. But on the other hand, you have the practical effect, right? So it's a bit of a trade-off.
Right.
And STAMP is administered a lot in schools where you have these blocks, right? So we have to be careful about that. But at the end of the day, I believe STAMP really achieves a sweet spot in terms of being long enough to measure very accurately what it is we're trying to measure, mm-hmm. which is language proficiency, but...
So what if we did make it shorter? So let's say there's 3 prompts in speaking and 3 prompts in writing, right? Why not just have 1?
Well, one of the things is, let's say that everybody has different abilities in different topics, right? Mm-hmm. So this is about sampling. Yeah. If you want to measure this much of an ability, you want to sample a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from there randomly, right? Mm-hmm. Because then you can generalize about their ability in the big picture. Right. If you just give them 1 prompt, I don't know if it's because for some reason they were feeling tired, or they didn't feel like giving their best effort there.
They don't care about the topic.
They don't care about the topic.
So you ask about sports and the kid doesn't like sports.
That could be a possibility. Yeah. And when you have 3 prompts, and we're going to talk about the kind of prompts that we have a little bit more, you have more to sample in order to make that final decision about what their score is, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing about STAMP is that it's an adaptive test.
So now you're talking reading and listening.
And a little bit of writing and speaking. Okay. So if we go for the reading section in STAMP, you're going to see 30 questions, mm-hmm. and you start out with common questions for everybody, and depending on your responses to the questions, the better you are able to respond them, the more questions you get correct, the harder the questions will become, right? So this is much better than a linear test, where everybody gets exactly the same questions, because we're targeting the questions to your level. And this is a well-known thing in language assessment, that whenever I give you something that is near your level, sometimes you're going to get it right, sometimes you're going to get it wrong, and then boom, I make that decision, right?
So you're not giving me an item that's so easy, I'm going to get it right 100% of the time. You don't want to give me an item that's so difficult, I'd never be able to understand it in a million years. You want to get it right at the cusp of my ability there.
Exactly.
And that gives you more information. So then you can do it with 30 questions, instead of, say, 60 questions.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Because we have an adaptive design, we can use fewer questions. 30 might seem like a lot for everybody, but at the end of the day, STAMP is used for the Seal of Biliteracy, which is your ability to perform at a certain level in the real world. Right. So we have to have enough questions to make that decision. Right. But by having it be adaptive, we're able to extract more information with fewer questions. And when I talk about the writing, the prompts you get in the writing, they depend on your reading score. Okay. So it's not adaptive in the same sense that it might go up or down in the level of the questions depending on your responses, but the difficulty of the language in the prompts in speaking and writing, they depend on your reading and your listening scores.
So if I'm like novice level in reading, I'll probably get a prompt for a novice level task.
Exactly.
Like make a list of things that you like or something
exactly.
like that.
Okay. It doesn't make sense if you scored. These are different abilities.
Right.
Reading and writing are different abilities, but it's very unlikely, unless something very wrong happened during the proctoring, during the test administration, that somebody might get a score of 2 in reading and a score of 7 in writing. Imagine you're trying to measure somebody's juggling ability, right? And let's say you're a juggler that can juggle 10 balls, and I keep giving you 1 and 2 balls, and you deal with 1 ball, it's fine, you deal with 2 balls, it's okay. I'm still very far from your target. Mm-hmm. If I give you 8 balls to juggle, you will juggle that. I give you 11, you're going to drop.
Right.
Now we're narrowing, just like we do with STAMP, on your ability much easier than I just give you many things that are outside of your ability.
So what I hear you saying is, okay, so we got a complaint from this teacher, STAMP's so long, right? It takes a lot of time out of my class. If you made it shorter, you'd get the opposite complaint of it's not accurate, it's not giving us an accurate level for this particular kid because you only asked 10 questions.
Exactly. So STAMP is as short as it can be to give you an accurate picture of a student's proficiency. At the end of the day, the question is not how short or long STAMP is, but is it worthwhile going through the process to get the information that you get? And we believe it is.
And the key to that is using that data reflectively, right? So when you get it, if you just look at it and say, my kids did okay, it's probably not worth the time. If you take that and you reflect and you talk to your colleagues and you redo your curriculum, that sort of thing, then you've probably got your money's worth and the time's worth out of STAMP, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Well, we hope that helps you understand a little bit more our process in deciding how many questions we're going to have in STAMP. And in fact, it's not as long as you believe it is. We're trying to measure students' ability as well as we can.